Hey everyone, Paul King from Flow Mobile Surveying here. Today I want to show you our new Fire Risk Assessment V5 template. We haven't really advertised our Fire Risk Assessment templates much, and that's because really we're just ironing out some of the issues. I'm pretty happy with the way that this one is working, and for anyone who's used to using some of the old versions, this might be a bit of a departure, a bit of a different way of doing things, but we think it's a lot more flexible, and it should give you scope for doing different types of fire risk assessments on different types of buildings. So let's dive right in and take a look at how things work. So first of all, I'm going to add a report. I'm going to select my Fire Risk Assessment V5 template. And I'm not going to go too much into a lot of these sections. What I'm going to focus on is the inspection and action plan. This is where you're going to do most of your work. Now, there's a couple of different options here. You can either add the risks individually, and that might be suitable if, for example, you're only recording non-compliances, maybe a sort of more limited type of fire risk assessment, or you can use what's called a preset, which is going to add all the risks in one go, and then you can just work your way through them. Now, I'm going to start by adding a single item because that's the simplest way to add a single risk. But like I say, I don't think this is going to be the best route for most people. So you've got a couple of options here. You can select one of the preset categories. For example, I might select arson, and then I can hand type in the hazard. Now, this isn't really going to be very easy for a lot of people unless you've memorized the past 79 risks. You're probably unlikely to remember what those questions are. What you can actually do instead is use what's called a quick fill. So I can select this little lightning bolt, and if I select, for example, sufficient control, it's going to fill in both the category and also the hazard, and then I just need to fill out the rest of the form. So I might say, bins too close to building. Maybe I'll put a photo in there. I'll not do that now, and put the risk and a recommendation. So that's how I'd add a single hazard on its own. Like I say, this is going to be pretty time consuming if you're doing that 110 times. If it might be, like I said, useful if you're only recording those non-compliances. So I'm sure there's a time and a place for this, but I just want to make you aware of this option. Now, the other option, and this is going to be the best for most people, is to use what's called a preset. So if I click the add preset button rather, you can see we've got some preset selections in here. You've got two options. You can either add all of the past 79 hazards in one go, or you can add the individual hazard groups. So if I tap this top button, it's going to add 110 risk items, all from the past 79. If I tap this one, it's going to add 5 just from the electrical sources of ignition. So I'm going to add the past 79 hazards, all of them in one go by tapping this button here. And you can see it's expanded out all of the groups, and we can sort of work through this list if we want. It might be a bit overwhelming that it's expanded them out. If that's the case, you can just go back a screen, jump back in, and it then collapses them again. So what we can do is we can open up the arson section. I'm going to open up this question here and tap in, and you can see we've got the category, we've got the hazard, we just need to fill in the rest of this information. So for example, I might say it's non-compliant, again, bins too close to the building. That could be my comment. I could select a picture from my gallery. I've got one here. Maybe the recommendation is just to move bins to a safer location. And the category, the priority may be medium for this one. So you can see I've added one kind of instance of that, one occurrence. If there are bins in another part of the building or another sort of unsafe location, what I can do is I can just copy this. I can select all of the fields and perhaps take another photograph here. I've got another one in my gallery, I think. So select this one, and I can give it a different priority even if I want to. This one could be low because it's a bit further up from the building. And I can just carry on in that way, adding as many occurrences as I want. So you may want to put in some descriptive information within here about where it is. So in this case, maybe it's to the gates. and you could describe exactly where it is. So that's going to be helpful if you've got a big building that you're surveying, or somewhere with multiple locations. So I would just work my way through the answers in this way. You can see any ones that have been marked up in red, they're awaiting some sort of input. So what happens is, as soon as you complete this form, fill in the information, this little mark will disappear to let you know that you've done that one, and you can then sort of work through the rest. So this is going to keep you right. You're not going to miss out any questions that way. If I go back to the screen, there are some other sections which may be unfamiliar. For example, the action timeframes. So you may have noticed when we filled out this this risk item here, we chose a priority: low, medium, high, and critical. Now, it's up to you to decide what the timeframes are for the client to action these risk items are. So if I go into the action timeframes, what you can do is you can say low risk. Maybe it's when appropriate would be the answer for that one. Medium risk, you could say within time frame, perhaps. This would be 1 week for this one. High risk, you could say one. Maybe that one would be 1 week. So this one would be 2, and so on. This one could be immediately. So you can basically set your own action timeframes based on the appropriate timescale for the client. There are also quick fills on this as well, so save you from filling that out. You can let us know what your defaults are, and if you just tap this button, it's going to sort of fill that in each time, which is handy if you're doing lots of fire risk assessments. You don't have to fill this out each time. So the next thing I'm going to do is just going to quickly dive into the report, and I'm going to show you how that looks. What you will notice is we've actually got 2 layouts on this particular report. We've got the full fire risk assessment, and then we've just got like an action plan, which is just the actionable items. So the fire risk assessment is going to contain everything, the compliances and the non-compliances, but it's going to sort of show the client that you've considered each of these things. So that's going to be quite nice. So I'm going to scroll down. You'll see we've got a bunch of errors here, and that's because for one, we haven't specified the action timeframes. So I can pop those in, give this a refresh. Those errors will disappear. Other ones are saying that we're missing compliance status. Obviously, we haven't worked through this report yet and answered all of those questions. So it's going to keep you right. The error messages will tell you what needs doing. Once you've actually completed your individual risks on site, you will need to give the report what's called like an overall risk score. So this is a summary of all of those risks and your recommendations. So I'm just going to fill that in actually, just to sort of show you how that affects the report. First of all, you'll notice one of those big errors has disappeared, but you'll also see the overall risk rating here in the summary. So that's a nice indicator to the client about the general state of things. We do have recommendations by priority as well. So any high or critical risks will have like a warning symbol throughout the report. I don't think we actually added any with that level, did we? Maybe I'll change this one to high, and we'll see a few of those little exclamation marks throughout the report now, because we've got this one high risk item. Scrolling ahead, like I mentioned, it will sort of flag up those high risk items, because we've got one high risk item here. It's telling us that that's the case. We've got our basic recommendations. So because we'd sort of suggested we need to move those bins to a safer location, it's telling us here. And you can click the view link, like in a lot of other reports, just to skip straight to that item. So in this case, there were both arson risks. We've got our arson category here. What we've actually got is, because you can have any number of occurrences, this overall sort of result is the combination of these. So, sorry, this result is the combination of these ones here. So, for example, if this one is compliant, this overall is not compliant still, because we've got a non-compliant. Whereas if this if this one also is compliant, so if I change this one to compliant as well, now the overall compliance result is okay. It's compliant. You can have not applicables as well, so it's clever enough to kind of work those out as well. So this is going to be nice and flexible. It's going to mean that you can really go into some level of detail about the different risks and where you found them as well. So just another thing to mention is these images are scaled down for the report. You can actually click them and it's going to open up the sort of full resolution image, which is going to be handy. That's actually a small image that I've obviously plucked off the internet, so I'm unable to zoom right in. But if it's a high-res image, you'll be able to sort of get right in there and sort of see what's happening. And the report just carries on in that way. Any unanswered questions will have this TBC, to be confirmed. You'll also see a message at the top of the report saying that they're missing a compliance status, so there's something else to do. And as you work through that list, this will change, and eventually you'll get to 0. If any of them So if any of the risk items aren't relevant, for example, if cooking risks just aren't something to consider, then you can actually just delete those risk items here just to kind of remove them from the report. And that's going to be really nice if you just don't want them to appear and you don't want the report to appear to be missing anything. So now if we scroll ahead to where the cooking should be, obviously it's between A and D, you can see that has disappeared. So like I say, if we don't need this one, we remove it. It just instantly gets removed from the report. So that's a nice little feature. So I think that's pretty much it. The rest of it is pretty self-explanatory. I think there's information about the building that you'd want to log, and you'd want to sign it off and things like that. But I think a lot of that is quite easy to figure out. The thing that I just wanted to get across was those presets and making sure that when you're first on site, you add all the hazards in one go, just to save yourself a bit of time rather than adding them individually, which is going to be a lot more painstaking. So I hope this reaches you well. I hope this template is helpful. I've had some great feedback from a few of our clients who started using it, and I'd love it if you could chip in, let me know what you think of it, and hopefully it's offering some value to you in your business. Hope you're having a good day, and I'll speak to you soon. All the best. Bye.